Good morning. So, as promised, we're going to do a mini lecture on our chapter 11. There are a lot of slides, so I'm going to be pretty much going through those pretty quickly to highlight the things that you need to study in the chapter. Social psychology, as I already stated before, is different than sociology, but some people get them confused. Think of social psychology as individuals' behavior. There again, we're looking at individual behavior in psychology, whereas sociology looks at group behavior. So we will concentrate in this chapter on individual behavior within a group. So let me share my screen so that you can be a party to the PowerPoint and certain slides. When we're looking at things in this chapter, we're going to be defining social psychology, the study of how people think about, influence, and relate to other people. Places many topics from other areas of psychology into a social context. So think of how our social relationships change over time, whether that be a child or an infant, a toddler, how social relationships change how we look at the world. And especially during adolescence, is our independence from family, but we may have social relationships with our peers. There again, it's similar to sociology, the study of human societies, organizations, and institutions. But social psychologists focus on the individual. So as we look at this, think of how you interact in a group, how different people interact. An example of the discovery of a bystander effect, which is very much affects individual behavior, the tendency of an individual who observes an emergency to be less likely to help when other people are present than when the observer is alone. So, our societal expectations, some people will jump right in and some people are afraid of what might happen in a situation like that. Social cognition or thinking, think of that cognitive word, the area of psychology exploring how people select, interpret, remember, and use social influence information. Think about how your social situation changes. Are you different with family than you are with your peers, than you are in a situation that's new to you? More often than not, that answer is yes. That doesn't mean you're three different people or that you're faking it. It's that your social situation uh, changes your behavior and your reactions. I grew up as an Air Force brat. In social situations, I very much had to learn to read those as we moved from state to state and school to school, and that some things were accepted in Michigan that aren't accepted in Oklahoma, and that the social interactions I had with friends changed my outlook. So, socialization is very important. As we move to more and more parents homeschooling children, uh, I definitely understand why parents want to do this. There are co ops and certain groups and churches that will help supply the social interactions that might get missed with homeschooling to help the development and for people to learn how to behave in certain social situations. For example, if there is crowd anger, how do you react in crowd anger as an individual, not the crowd itself, because then we'd be overlapping into sociology. So as we move through these, perception, how perception affects how we interact with people. We should not judge appearance, and yet we tend to. We shouldn't judge how someone is dressed. Um, think about going into a car dealership or a store, and you may be in your yard clothes. Does that mean your money is any less important than a person that's dressed in a suit and tie? No, but social situations mandate the way we react. We're also, as we're socializing, stereotypes play a role. A stereotype is a generalization about a group's characteristics that does not consider any variations from one individual to another. So, as we look at race or culture, we shouldn't stereotype that all of one type of culture like this kind of food, or all of one kind of culture is short-tempered or racist. We need to be careful with our stereotypes. Attribution theory is something you need to be familiar with. People are motivated to discover the underlying causes of behavior as part of their effort to make sense of the behavior. Attributions vary along three dimensions: internal and external causes, stable and unstable, controllable and not controllable. So attribution, putting characteristics onto a person, attributing their behavior to their culture or their race, is an issue. Attribution errors and biases can alter our social interactions. Fundamental attribution error observers overestimation of the importance of internal traits. Self-serving bias, the tendency to take credit for one's own successes and to deny responsibility for failures. So these are things that take place as we're exploring social psychology. Here is a physical example of attribution error, and that is also located in your book on page 412, explaining that the supervisor is the observer and the employer is the actor, and maybe what thought process take place during that interaction. Heuristics can be helpful in navigating the complex social landscape, but they can lead to mistakes. So the stereotypes, the false consensus effect, and social media can lead people to overestimate how many people share their opinions. Generalizations saying all older white females are grumpy. That may be the case sometimes, but not all the time. So attributing characteristics to an age group or a gender is a dangerous zone. So I'm going to skip down through some of these slides to get to look at slide 16 as we're exploring the difference between attitudes and behavior. Cognitive dissonance theory is very well outlined on page 415 of your book. And think of that, although we think of attitudes as causing behavior, behavior can change attitudes through dissonance reduction or self-perception. So cognitive dissonance is another concept introduced by Festinger. And, you know, when your values and your morals are in conflict with behavior, that is an issue. You may find yourself under stress when you experience that. It's hard to explain, but if you think about, okay, if you're asked to do things at work that go against your beliefs, that will create cognitive dissonance thinking. It causes problems for people trying to interact, that if they're in a group of people that are behaving a certain way and it goes against the grain, it goes against what you believe, it goes against what you would normally do, that could create dissonance, conflict. So be aware of that. It's very thoroughly explained 415 and 416. So persuasion, social behavior, two particular behaviors that interest psychologies in social behavior: altruism and aggression. So altruism, it feels good to do things for other people, particularly if you're not expecting credit, that you enjoy helping others, maybe working in a food pantry, maybe helping a fellow student out with homework. Uh, it makes us feel better about ourselves if we are helping others. Um, it could be viewed by some that that's somewhat selfish, that, oh, I'm doing things because it makes me feel better. Why not? If you're reaching out to others, altruistic behavior can definitely help work against depression and anxiety. Uh, Altruism in our book on page 419 can be defined as giving to another person with the ultimate goal or benefiting that person, even if it incurs a cost to yourself. So I know that as we're facing challenges with our uh, food supply right now, with government assistance being cut, I know that my grandchildren and my great grandchildren are suffering in this aspect. Groceries are already so expensive. So I like giving to them when they don't expect it. Um, it means a lot to me to be able to ease up that. It helps me at school where I work if I'm able to donate to our food pantry or to our little food nooks that we have around campus that students can access without having to uh, show anything, to make sure that people are being taken care of. So the altruism plays a large role. And then psychologists also like to study aggression and think of aggression in this aspect, that different genders are affected, in that when a man is aggressive, uh, it is less a stigma than when a woman is aggressive. Woman may get entitled with that capital B for bitch by being aggressive, where a man seldom is criticized for aggression. Aggression, social behavior whose objective is to harm someone, either physically or verbally. Um, these have biological influences, temperament issues, could be somewhat of a PTSD reaction to certain situations. But this is studied as much with social psychology as altruism is. Psychological influences with aggression, uh, look at the characteristics on slides 24 and 25 for some of the things that feed into this. Frustration is one. Frustration can bring out behavior that might not normally be seen. Uh, Aggression is not considered a pro-social uh, factor. It is, like empathy and altruism, are encouraged. Aggression is not encouraged. And understanding where your aggression comes from is important. So look 24, 25, 26 to explore those aspects. Our close relationships definitely affect how we react in a group and how we socially interact. Attraction to others can hopefully bring forth the positive aspects of our personality. And this can be both in romantic connotation and also friendship. What attracts you to being friends with somebody? What attracts you to being sexually attracted to somebody? So all of these, believe it or not, are socially influenced. So what suits us as a friend group. So let me skip down. Models of close relationships is explored on slide 32. Uh, it explains the social exchange theory, that social relationships involve an exchange of goods and not necessarily monetary goods. It could be a sharing of music, a sharing of commonalities, a sharing of just enjoying the company of somebody else. It is objective to minimize costs and maximize benefits, equity, having a friend that things are pretty equitable, help. There are different models that we explore with this area. Conformity arcs, Ash's conformity experiment is explored on page 431 in your book. And conformity and obedience. You will find as a child that if you conform and are obedient, you get different treatment than a child that tries to break the reins. And I don't know, I kind of like the nonconformists, the people that challenge the boundaries, not break the boundaries, but challenge the boundaries. It is interesting to observe that behavior. Conformity in the brain. Conformity is a powerful social force and why it's so important for us to fit in with a group. You can see that on page 431 and 432. Milligram's experiment. This wouldn't be allowed now with ethics, but it is very much explored on page 432 of your book. And when we are willing and socially influenced to cause harm to somebody else, in experiments now in psychology, that's not allowed. But he learned how much social pressure can influence a person to hurt somebody else. And we can see that with our political climate. You can see that in World War II, in the camps with Nazism, and the fact that people were encouraged to torture and experiment on other humans. Whereas in normal situations, people wouldn't have done that. So it is a long study in the fact that what will cause people to cause harm to others, the social ramifications of that are scary. So you've got slides 37, 38, and 39 that explore this experiment. So as you explore this chapter, I promised you I wouldn't kill you by PowerPoint. You can find many of the terms that you'll be learning on page 445. There is a summary that defines social psychology, social cognition, social behavior, close relationships, and social influence and group processes. A movie that I show in my graduate master's level classes is American History X. It's very violent, but it looks at how social influences can influence individual behavior. I would have to disclaim it that just be aware that it is extremely violent, but it is accurate of what can influence somebody to do things to people that they might not normally do, those social factors. So I'm going to stop the PowerPoint now. I think I've tortured you enough. This book is enjoyable to read. It gives different perspectives in chapter 11. And please review the full PowerPoint that is posted. And before you read the chapter, to familiarize yourself with the terms, then read the chapter before doing your SmartBook assignments. Have a good day.